Malcolm X spoke about building bridges between Africans on the continent and abroad, because people of African descent live all over the globe, from Brazil to the United States, from the Caribbean to even the Middle East. While millions of people across continents are connected by a shared ancestry and culture that has roots in Africa, those who left, or were forcibly taken away, were molded by the new environments that they entered. In the Caribbean, Africans often became the majority living under European colonial rule, then eventually had their own democratic governments. In places like the United States and Brazil, they became minorities, forced to navigate societies built to exclude them. So while everyone has the same origins, Africa and its many diaspora groups were shaped by their new realities. Despite the differences between Africa and its diaspora, the connection has never truly been broken. Time and time again, Africans, no matter where they are in the world, pushed for an idea that hoped to bring the continent and its diaspora back together. This revolutionary idea is called Pan-Africanism. There's many different definitions based on who you ask, but its simplest definition is the belief that people of African descent share a common destiny and should be united based on solidarity as people who originated from Africa. Whether in America like Malcolm X or on the continent like Kwame Nkrumah, Africans have sought to build links between many groups across the globe. The reality is, though, this has been a constant thread throughout history. Arguably, there's no need to build bridges between Africa and its diaspora, because they've always been there. One of the most famous attempts at building connections between the continent and the diaspora came from Marcus Garvey in the early 1900s. Born in colonial Jamaica, Garvey moved to the United States to create the Universal Negro Improvement Association, or the UNIA, after traveling throughout Europe and experiencing racial discrimination firsthand. His message was bold. He proudly called for an Africa for Africans. He used the UNIA to push for a Back to Africa movement. He wanted to unite Africans across the globe and return to Africa to establish a country and a government of their own. While this was done with good intentions, there was a problem. Garvey had never actually been to Africa, and when he tried to establish a settlement, countries like Liberia and Nigeria refused. Some feared his movement, others simply didn't trust him, and many African Americans weren't convinced either. They were being asked to move to a place they had never seen, led by someone who hadn't either. Garvey was a complicated man, and his decisions were even more complex. He declared himself the provisional president of all of Africa, without even stepping foot on the continent or holding a single election. However, his vision was powerful, even if a little disconnected from reality. His movement led to thousands, if not millions, of Africans in America feeling pride in their heritage and origin. But Garvey's idea to return back to the continent wasn't new. In the 1800s, a group called the American Colonization Society began sending free Black Americans to West Africa. That settlement became Liberia. At first, it was controlled by Americans, but eventually, Black Americans obtained control of the colony and declared independence from the United States. By the mid-1800s, Liberia became Africa's first republic. On paper, it looked like a success. In reality, it told a different story. The Black American settlers, known as Americo-Liberians, built a system that excluded the local population. They controlled power, land, and government. And like European colonizers, they expanded territory by force, leading to deep resentment among local Africans. After decades of essentially one-party rule, that tension eventually exploded into a military coup and years of civil war. Despite Liberia's poor track record, there were individuals who believed in the spirit of Pan-Africanism and solidarity between African people. Edward Wilmot Blyden was one example of this type of person. Blyden was born in the Caribbean in what is now the U.S. Virgin Islands. After facing racial discrimination in the United States, he moved to Liberia in the 1800s. But unlike many others, Blyden didn't try to recreate America in Africa. He believed in something different. At a time when many Africans and members of the diaspora were adopting European names, languages, and customs, Blyden argued for the exact opposite. He called for pride in the African identity and its culture. His ideas would go on to influence generations of Pan-African thinkers across the diaspora and are still important to this day. Another example of connections between Africa and the diaspora is in Sierra Leone, where freed Africans from Britain and the Caribbean settled in Freetown. Over time, they blended into a new identity, the Creole people. They became educated, influential, and spread across West Africa as administrators, merchants, and leaders. In many cases, though, the Creole were supporters of colonizers, helping with administration and the spreading of Christianity, though this did change as time went by. Some returned to places like Nigeria, where they became known as the Saro. They helped shape the independence movements that led to African liberation. One of them, Herbert Macaulay, would become a key figure in Nigeria's fight for self-rule. And others, like returnees from Brazil, left their mark too. They brought architecture, culture, and new ideas with them. So the connections between Africa and the diaspora are deeply ingrained in history. Fast forward to today. The connection to Africa is still strong. In 2019, Ghana launched the Year of Return, marking 400 years since the slave trade and inviting the diaspora to visit, invest, and reconnect. Thousands came, but even now, tensions remain. In places like Asebu, the local king offered 5,000 acres of land to returnees, but without consulting locals who say that the land was theirs before the returnees came to claim it. While this is an inspiring example of the diaspora returning to Africa to find their roots, it's once again at the expense of local Africans. As you can see, the ties between Africa and its diaspora never truly disappeared. People have moved back and forth for centuries with ideas and culture constantly flowing. But through it all, the dream of Pan-African unity and solidarity was hard to achieve. Garvey tried to lead a movement to Africa without consulting those living there. Liberia and Sierra Leone brought the diaspora to Africa, but at the expense of local Africans. So when the diaspora returns, it's not always a simple homecoming. Each time, the response to difference among Africans was to try to eliminate or ignore it. But the lesson from Garvey, Liberia, and Sierra Leone is that if Pan-African unity is the goal, then understanding the differences between different African groups is the starting point. Only when we as Africans in diaspora understand our differences and try to come to agreement despite them, can we truly unite as people and build the bridges that Malcolm X spoke about. Thanks for watching. This is Ijimi Media, where our goal is simple. Make information about our communities accessible to everyone from the perspective of the people we report on. If you like content like this, please like and subscribe.